while we are doing everything on our side to bring efficiency and productivity to the country, as at the same time increasing the employment levels, right? Providing employment to lakhs of people, we would expect and request the government to help us on both these fronts. Our expectations are always quite high from the budget. As a business services sector, we are one of the largest sectors in the country. I'll divide it into 2 or 3 categories. On the financial side, our biggest ask is for the GST to be reduced from the 18% category slab to the 5% slab. We are in the critical services category, right? Emergency services category, all our services, and therefore we deserve to be in the lower GST category. Secondly, with the interest rates going higher, is putting more pressure on services industry to maintain their cash flows, and therefore our expectation would be to reduce the TDS, tax deducted as source, from 2% to 0.5%. There's also a very exciting incentive program that government had, 80JJA, which is for employment generation. We would expect that to continue because the country needs employment and such incentives are always encouraged. Right? A specific request for the healthcare industry, where the healthcare as a business, they can't charge GST to the patients normally, right? So they don't get an offset, whereas we have to charge GST to them. So if government can consider waiving of GST to the healthcare industry, which is again a very critical need for the country as large and society also as a whole. If possible, for government to consider certain subsidies for the electronic security. Electronic security industry requires a lot of research and development. So if there can be some subsidy on the manpower required deployed for the R&D part. There can also be a possibility to subsidize the insurance premium on assets or buildings that deploy electronic security. These are some of the suggestions for the electronic security side. On the overall policy side, we have a very large pest management business, which is again very critical post-COVID to maintain the hygiene in facilities. And there, the government has not yet classified it as a scaled or semi-scaled, unskilled category, the workers. And that creates a lot of confusion, and some unorganized players offer rates which are not sustainable. So maybe a level playing field there will be very useful. On the whole, for most of our businesses, we require licenses for, say, the PASARA for security and labor licenses. I see no reason why it can't be centralized rather than doing it state by state. That will be a big step forward if we can take some policy changes towards that. In addition, some macro policies the government can consider are for cash logistics segment. There are a lot of vehicles moving around, vans. There can be a standardization for the electric vehicles that can be brought into the whole cash logistics sector. On the AI side, artificial intelligence requirement for the entire infrastructure, the oil and gas, power, transport sector, there's huge amount of work to be done. So I'm hoping government will lay out an expenditure plan for that, and also encourage maybe hardware imports to be subsidized for the duties that are used for this artificial intelligence, because that eventually will help in the efficiency gains for the country. Very good question, and I think most of the people in India won't be aware that the cash circulation is higher right now than it was pre-demonetization. So cash as a currency will never go out of circulation. We've seen that in developed markets also, where it's very highly digitized, but the cash circulation is probably higher than what it was in the earlier days. But it's good that the country is moving towards digitization. Together with the entire digitization space and the BFSI, banking financial services space, it offers businesses like ours, cash logistics, to get into the support ancillary segments, the new sunrise segments, where we can support the banking industry to reach far-flung places in India, the rural areas, etc. So we see this sector growing and throwing up new opportunities also. The real challenge or the competition is from the newer economy segments, all the Zomato and Swiggies, who require again people in large numbers, and many of them are gravitating towards those segments. But labor, fortunately, is still in a large supply in a market like ours in India, but we don't take it for granted. We like to attract the labor towards us by offering the right work environment, right training environment, right growth opportunities. There are people who've joined us as janitors, guards, and are now in director level positions, right? But I completely agree that salaries or the wages are the most important criteria. And the least the government can do to help in this segment and to help those workers is to have a minimum floor wage across all states. Right now, different states have different minimum floor wage, and that is very unfair. And it will help and go a long way if government can bring this introduction soonest. We consider it as the future to be ManTech, man plus tech, across all our businesses, right? We are investing heavily in technology, both internal applications as well as external applications. And we are investing heavily in our people, right across all levels, in the training and the growth. So while we are doing everything on our side to bring efficiency and productivity to the country, as at the same time increasing the employment levels, right, providing employment to lakhs of people, we would expect and request the government to help us on both these fronts, right? To make technology more accessible, lay out an expenditure plan for that technology, provide some subsidies for the technology introductions. And on the manpower side, we talked about the wages, uniform licenses across the country. So these are some of the things that the government can do. We will do our bit on the man plus tech side. And this overall is the requirement that will help the country going forward.